As promised, we are back with Neblime against iSarCasm. Victory Square has 2 more matches to it in this set, so let's find out what happens. I do recognize now that technically the last, is this going to be 6 games after this one and the next, have been done on Victory Square, because we casted 3 matches between Neblime and iSarCasm, and then we casted the match on, the Benza versus Neblime, and then on top of it, we're casting these 2. So, yeah, we've got some Victory Squares for you. But I guess there was the cheese wheel that I did against BiddyB on Pantheon to break things up. So anyway, I hope you guys aren't too tired of the map. We do obviously go to Highwater next. We might be able to get one of those games in this particular set. We'll see how long these initial ones are. Of course, there's a lot more games for me to cast and for other people to cast. If anybody wants to take some off my hands, you can always join the Discord server. We can get you set up. I did write a guide, a short little text guide on how to backdate your version so you can get access to the right game version to run all of these replays. And I always leave myself notes on which version that is, so I can just go ahead and hand you those if you so need. Anyway, we have Neblime against iSarCasm. As before mentioned, the blue Terran in the top right, that's Neblime. The yellow bottom right Protoss, that's iSarCasm, and he is going for a gateway first as usual. This time around, Neblime not going for the Fulcrum first and going for a Stockade. He wants to try Bio versus Protoss again. On top of it all, this is an old version. This is actually the tournament patch. This was practice still, remember, for Neblime taking on Mystery Meat and potentially the Shambler and all that other stuff. So we wound up seeing Neblime bow out versus Mystery Meat, and then Mystery Meat absolutely bop the shit out of Hamster, just like he bopped the shit out of that Scribe. Anyway, the gateway is nearly complete. The Mavericks are already out in terms of their number of 2. That's not 3, but it soon will be. And the gateway finishing means that it doesn't look like there's going to be any sort of crazy push or rush. There was a lot of typing about like your first RTS or some of the RTSs you played back in the day, and it looks like iSarCasm got carried away typing, kind of like Shambler sometimes does. Looks like 1 o'clock is also in the sights of Neblime as he works a worker out over there. Works a worker, yeah, indeed. He works, you work out onto the map. You just go to the gym and work out. I don't know, there's probably some way that made sense in English, but a little bit tautologous, a little bit goofy. We like goofy things around here, though. Don't you guys know that Zerg Ultralisk is a great unit? I don't know if I'll ever let that one go. It's just too funny to me. It took so much time to make all of these blends, and I forgot one. Another bug to fix. I did fix this one after recording the last cast in this set. I even commented on it because I showed it off in the Benza versus Neblime match that we saw. What was that? That'll be yesterday, I guess. I'll probably upload this after the Benza and Neblime game. I cast these in different orders, right? So usually there's been different things. Like I casted the game that comes out tomorrow from today. And if you can follow that, then I don't know, man. Send me some money or something, because we're clearly of the same mind. The Drakiden will walk over, get bopped, Stimpack achieved, and the Mavericks will go ahead and chase it away. So yeah, at this point, Mystery Meat has not yet been crowned Ascension 6's champion. Pretty cool to see some practice matches between some of the homies that are new and some of the homies that are old. And iSarCasm is going to be in the Ascension number 7 Gauntlet, the qualifier. We'll see if he manages to make it happen. I do like the idea that it's still called the Gauntlet stage, or it's called like a stage of the tournament. But, I also am open to the idea that maybe it shouldn't be something quite like that. I don't know, like, should it be considered part of the tournament if you didn't qualify to the tournament? You know what I mean? Anyway, these are just things that I think about. Because I remember back when Counter-Strike, the CSGO majors, used to also have minors. And the minors were called that because they weren't part of the actual tournament. They were separate events. And they had their own, like, wiki pages on Wikipedia and stuff. And they were the qualifiers. So the reason why that's significant is if you say I made the major, then that means something different than I made the major qualifier. And I guess it would be a kind of a similar vibe here. But in this case, there is no qualifier to the qualifier. We haven't gotten to that deep yet. So the gauntlet itself is just part of the tournament where you openly sign up. And I guess that's fine. There's still prestige in saying I made it to the group stage versus I got knocked out in the gauntlet stage. How many people will be saying that? Well, it's the number of contestants minus 4. Right now, that is actually an odd number. It's 13. We do have the ability to make a bracket work with that, though, so I am not worried. Very fast embassy out of iSarCasm. It's been a while since I've seen him play versus Terran. He's floating a lot of money here. One of the things to note is that this is He commented on the video saying that he was like happy that I casted the first 3 games of the set because they were the games that he did well in. And so I don't know what to expect out of these, but he said that the final record was not as nice as the 1-2 scoreline that it currently is, which means maybe neblime takes this match. Maybe this is one of the additional matches that iSarCasm squeaks out. Luckily enough, it doesn't really matter if you spoil the final outcome this early into the set, so I have no idea what to expect. But we'll find out when we get a little bit deeper into this match. When you play against neblime, the game is only going to get exciting in the mid-game unless you make it exciting by smashing. And that's not me saying you should always make it exciting, because sometimes it's the objectively quote-unquote correct way to play a little bit more on the macro side. And I can still get excited about that because I can see the possibilities. But iSarCasm is very new, so he's still learning some of those details. He kind of knows, oh yeah, you build witnesses so that you can detect a Terran, just like you build observers in StarCraft 2 or StarCraft 1. So it kind of makes sense, you know, it's just a name, the unit name is a little bit different, that's all. At some point we'll probably have a different model for it as well, because it looks a little goofy to me, but that's okay. Maybe it'll even have an animation, although that makes it a lot easier to spot, admittedly, so. Like if it was the Clarion that does that like rotating thing and it was permacloaked, it's super easy to spot, right? So that's something else that we got to think about. Although when you put it on top of another unit or structure, it's also super easy to spot, you know what I mean? But he is standing right bog step in the middle. We don't have any detection coming. There is a star pet available. We have a lot of Goliaths and a lot of Clerics and a lot of Hurricanes and a second Fulcrum. So neblime will probably be dropping. We have double Warden up here as well as double Pylon. That won't to protect the bottom of his mineral line, but it's against Hurricanes, right? Ahmed is melee, so he's actually A-okay. We have an Ardent Authority on the way out. And a Trojan heading outside that way. Okay, so interesting. He's actually going to drop the main. He might be able to depower the pylon powering the Ardent Authority, and well, destroy the pylon powering it, and then deal with the workers afterwards. There's actually not that many military units out here for iSarCasm. He's invested a lot in static defense and infrastructure, but he hasn't actually started training anything outside of a Cantor here from the Ardent Authority. It looks like maybe he's looking for a drop of his own, as his embassy is becoming an envoy, or making an envoy. A third Fulcrum on the way before the second is even done. We are absolutely going to see some pretty significant impact here. And I think he can very clearly tell that, thanks to his witness providing essentially a map hack, he can tell that, oh yeah, you know, there's an attack coming from drops. However, he somehow manages to not notice the absence of the Goliath, so maybe that's like map awareness or something. That does mean that his Dracodins were a little bit out of position. And here come the Hurricanes to add a little bit more firepower on top of the Dracodins. This is a move that was practiced by neblime earlier in our logistics here. And an Akantor is out to start dealing some damage to Ahmed. Ooh, absolutely bopped, but the Zealots all go down. Ah, 3 Ahmeds for 1 shot. Dude, that's a good one. Not for Ahmed, but still kind of good. Scooping up the Envoy. It's a little dangerous with the Goliaths out in tow, but they don't have any armor pen on this version of the game, so the Envoy will take a little bit reduced damage. I should say they don't have any armor pen on their anti-air weapon, is what I meant to say there, because technically they have 2 armor pen on twin autocannons. Ooh, very, very... Oh, from downtown! Ends up sniping the Envoy, and that's actually going to be GG out of Mr. iSarCasm. He didn't train another unit out of the Ardent Authority, and he did absolutely get bopped because of it. neblime did have, of course, the 1 o'clock location during this time, but the witness never actually spotted it, so he's just sort of learning what's going on there, and neblime even gives the Void, or maybe some observers that may or may not have been in that game, the rest of the build order. So that was kind of an interesting match. It showed that Terran can be a little bit decisive if the Protoss is going to take a little bit to get cooking. Let's cast the final Victory Square match, and while we do that, we can talk a little bit about updating our overlay to reflect the actual match score of 2 for 2. It's going to be iSarCasm as the green Protoss in the top right, against neblime as the brown Terran in the bottom right. That's golden brown to you, and the dark spring green, more specifically. I like to be specific with the colors. I just appreciate that we have like over 120 or 130 colors or whatever it is that we could potentially roll, so that's very nice. There's technically more than that, but some of them are prohibited. Like there's some achromatics that look really funky and cool, and those are only for like, you know, specific cases where it's like, oh, a scenario map, and you're supposed to be fighting against some really cool guy, and all of his army is super cool and trippy. Or whatever. Anyway, we have neblime here in the bottom right. So basically the same match as before, but the spawns are reversed. So we'll have the Terran going upwards and the Protoss going downwards. Maybe it means something. Stockade coming. I guess the one thing about the Stockade, right, and I always sort of try to explain it this way, is that right now, Terran has the capacity to go for Stockade into Fast Expand, even against Protoss, and that gives them the opportunity to eventually get to a point where they are pretty well equipped to deal with whatever you're going to throw at them. But when you see that Stockade, you should expect an expansion at somewhere down the line. If they go Fulcrum first, their army is more expensive, the structure is more expensive. That's going to delay not just their tech, but their first expansion. And that will absolutely make a significant difference as we get longer into the game. So when you see a Fulcrum first, you could expect an earlier attack. You might have to be a little bit more prudent with your containment or any attempt at attacking in the early stages of the game. And it will 100% result in some kind of expansion somewhere down the line. There was some Vespene being harvested already, though. So I wonder if maybe neblime is going to go for a Star Pad just off of the one guy on Vespene. It's going to be a 2-gate out of iSarCasm. And if he's not aware at this point, you go 1-gate expand if you want the fast expand. You go 2-gate into maybe an expansion after that later on. But at this point, he's not actually going to have the Vespene to do anything other than make a Zealot. So that is going to be something that he has to factor in as well. It looks like maybe he's not going to try to punish the Stockade opener, because you can force out some early aggression versus this. If you go 2-gate versus Stockade as the Protoss, you're thinking to yourself, okay, I'm going to build a lot of units, I'm going to make some money, and I'm just going to go ahead and start slamming out, Zealots, Drakodins, whatever. My units out of the Gateway are much more impactful than the Terran units out of the Stockade, so therefore I should be able to force my opponent to spend a lot of money doing stuff that they would otherwise rather not do. And I saw his camera over here at the 1 o'clock base, and that's what made me think he was going to try to expand. But it looks like maybe that's not going to be the case. So the Zealot actually gets blocked up a little bit on this Mason. There's a little bit of micro going in on iSarCasm's side to try to catch this. The Scribe is going to go ahead and maybe think about taking that expansion after all. It looks like he will actually start to take his natural. And this is the kind of the situation where I'm already feeling like maybe there could be something else, right? The Fulcrum is hiding away in the bottom right, very, very far. There is the Vulture here. But like, it does feel to me like the Gateway, the double Gateway could have actually happened, afforded him some kind of earlier military count to contest this attack. And it's even making a scrapyard down there. It's really hard to see until I actually pan all the way down. And, that should kind of tell you all you need to know about the situation. So Vulture is coming on in. It does have one lobotomy mine left. It's going to do some microing, but obviously the Drakodin will ward it off. The Zealot will retain its shields. An embassy on the way to back this up, but not very many resources, so no additional combat units being made, a lot of that down to the Nexus being halfway done. So at the very least, iSarCasm has the economic advantage after the situation, but it kind of feels like he could have done more pressure off of the 2-gate, or he could have had the economic advantage much faster off of the 1-gate, because he could have made these 2 units off of the 1-gate, been totally fine, safe from any initial aggression out of a Stockade first, you're not going to see that anyway, and then his embassy comes, which delays additional units out of the double gate. His double gate in the first place delays his Nexus. You can kind of see where it feels like it's not, he hasn't practiced that yet. I feel like if we took a look at a modern game from iSarCasm, his build orders would look a lot more robust because he would have been able to intuit that. But just in case he hasn't, or just in case we have another Protoss player watching and wondering what they might be able to do differently, particularly in this matchup, as Terran is unlikely to be under strength in this matchup as much, especially with Bio, since they're going to be a little bit more powerful. Like, I would look at this and I would say, as Protoss, these are things that you can do, right? So you can definitely get like 1-gate into expand, or 2-gate into a lot of pressure, or, if you do 2-gate and you only make the 2 units, then it's kind of a waste of the 2nd gate, is sort of what I'm getting at there. Ardent Authority is going to be the next order of business for Mr. Igor, aka iSarCasm. By the way, pretty cool that It Depends invited Sipiak, and maybe Sipiak invited iSarCasm or something like that. Just shout out to that crew, that trio. Always nice when the friends get involved. And it looks like iSarCasm, out of the 3, is probably the most competent player, from that little friend group, if you want to use that term. And to me, I feel like he's probably going to be in a pretty good state as he gets more familiar with the project. But once again, he is probably going to fall to this sort of early push, right? He doesn't really have anything. His 2 gates were mostly idle. He's only now making his 3rd military unit. And the other one is a witness. So the Ardent Authority is going to finish, but he's already going to have to evacuate his workers, and he doesn't even allow for it. He just calls GG. So this is absolutely a situation where neblime gets some easy dubs, and it just feels a little awkward there, right? He absolutely could have done more. He could have maybe made his units out a little bit faster. That was a very fast match, so we can absolutely get started on the games from between these two on Highwater. Let's jump into the first one. We have Monsieur Neblime in the bottom left. He is the green Terran, and iSarCasm, the beaver Protoss in the bottom right. Yes, beaver is a color as well as a player / map maker, and you might see him in Ascension number 7, assuming he accepts his spot, because I did invite all of the playoffs players. So check that out. Another thing that I think is cool to point out, or cool to muse on, since we'll use this opening section as a little bit of a podcast, is one of the things that I'm definitely appreciative of and thinking about, is I feel like as we get more players that are of a higher caliber, as the tournaments themselves get a little bit more competitive, as people like iSarCasm kick up their gear and improve their familiarity with the project and leverage their RTS skills that are latent within them, and then you also get people like, you know, Hapsea is coming in, we got Benza, we got, you know, Newt, who I actually haven't seen play too many games recently, but hopefully he's still good for his spot in the qualifier. And then all that other stuff, right? It just feels to me like I look at it and I think to myself, man, we're going to have a lot of players. Maybe we should have the tournament reflect that the competition is increasing and the stakes should get higher. And now instead of just making playoffs, you have to make top 6, which means you have to win a playoffs match and get to either the upper bracket or the second stage of the lower bracket or something like that, right? So anyway, these are just things that I'm thinking. I feel like it would be pretty epic to see. We will have yet another situation where a gateway is coming and Igor is grabbing, you know, his normal amount of resources. He's not going to go to gate, at least not right now. He has the money for it and he's not doing it just yet. He's not even really microing his scribe too much over here, so I don't think it was like, oh, I forgot. But we'll see what he decides to do now that he's at 200 minerals. Usually you want like one guy on Vespene at around the halfway point of the gateway so you can get your gas in time for a Dracodon. But it looks like instead it's going to be a Zealot if he wants to even do anything. He might just go for a gateway. No, he's going to add a second one now. Okay. Well, now we need to see something a little bit different than what we saw last game. The Vespene is there for a Dracodon. It starts very late. The second gateway is coming in. That's scouted by Neblime, who has gone Stockade first yet again and is getting a Cyprian, probably to put inside an Anchor, which now costs 25 minerals less on pre-release. Isn't that lovely? Now, just for that buff alone, I think I deserve some coffee money. Wink. And if you like to support product development more broadly, you can always do that in the link in the bottom right of your screen. Oh my god, it's also in the description. Easy clicking. Ministry coming here. This is very risky for Neblime. He's done the one Maverick at one Cyprian Expo. I mean, okay, I've seen him do a one Maverick Expo before. Against Protoss doing a one Maverick, one Cyprian Expo with no Anchor, I don't know about that one, man. I feel like, especially when he's got the second gate, you should absolutely expect that the game is going to go into some sort of fast play. So I'm feeling a little worried for him. He does have an Ahmed. Okay, Ahmed's pretty cool. He's a cool guy. But still, like, surely this is one of them situations where you're going to worry about getting bopped here. The Dracodon can just, like, A-move, and then when the Cyprian attacks it, oh, it won't even do it, because the Cyprian, it was at the edge of the vision range. Anchor's up here. I think it saw it, but didn't have the vision, or like, whatever. Something didn't happen there. And now the Dracodon will have to fall back, but regenerate its shields. The second one on the way. We've got 2 gate Dracodon spam. iSarCasm can even make another one if he wants to. This is what I was talking about earlier, where you're not going to have the money to expand if you're producing steadily off of 2 gates. It doesn't look like iSarCasm wants to do that, though. I'll keep this one selected just so we can keep track of that. The Anchor is almost done. The Cyprians can get in there to get the extra range. Meanwhile, we obviously have the Hurakan taking some pot shots. We still don't have anything out of that second gate, though. Interestingly enough, it looks like instead it's going to be a Nexus in that bottom right location. And now the Anchor is going to go ahead and lift off. We got a Fulcrum being added. Not really a whole lot of anything here. The Hurakan is taking some damage. Dracodons are going to step forward and, you know, they could kite backwards and attack Ahmed again to actually kill him. Instead, he'll be repaired by the Mason's welding torch. And here comes the Ministry. This is the sort of look that you would normally see. In fact, it looks like iSarCasm is not actually interested in continuing the contain. He could have definitely challenged and slowed the rate there. He could have like dug in and committed his Dracodons to this area, denied the landing, picked off the infantry, made it more awkward. Now the Anchor has to move forward. But it's almost like, it was like a weird coordinated dance where Neblime just put his Anchor away from his ramp, which would have allowed the Dracodons to start coming in and attacking. It would have been a point of weakness. And then the Dracodons also left at the same time. It's like somehow Neblime knew that Igor was just going to fuck right off, and Neblime was going to be like, all right, I got a free base. Like, I don't know. That's really strange. Second or third production structure coming. It's going to be the Star Pad. Looked fast, thought it was a Fulcrum. We've got Mavericks and a Hurakan in there, but the Cyprian Anchor is enough for now, it looks like. You know, having 4 Dracodons, I think you can skirt outside of the range of the Mavericks and that Anchor and attack this Anchor, and you can bust it with just 4 Dracodons, but we're going to see what it is. It could actually be you could go for Envoys here, just drop them in the mineral, and this is a very immobile army if you're going to stand up. That's the thing. Mech is a bit more mobile than Bio when you're trying to deal with Dracodons. If you're using Bio defensively, you're putting them in anchors, and that means that they are not very mobile, because the anchors can lift off, but it takes a very long time, and while they're lifted off, they can't attack. So if you're going to see a mech transition, like what I think is going to happen here, is it's kind of a 1-1-1 build right now for Monsieur Neblime. At the same time, iSarCasm is out here scouting around, worried about drops. Makes sense. Could probably tidy up his patrol paths here a little bit, but fairly solid. He doesn't actually have any workers over here. He's very far behind in workers right now. So this feels like it could be another match where Neblime could take it. And that's just something that I worry about, man. But mostly just for, you know, Igor's mental game. He has been getting increasingly more frustrated playing against Terran, specifically playing against Neblime. And it was a funny exchange. Neblime was like, man, what an epic game. And iSarCasm is like, what the fuck? The Sentinel is stupid and overpowered. And then Neblime's like, what the fuck? You thought that wasn't a good game? I loved that game. And now I'm tilted that you're tilted. I just thought that was a funny exchange. I don't know what game they're talking about. I don't think it's in this set. It was much more recently played. So that's just entertaining to me that Neblime's like, in his heart of hearts, he's like, oh, CMBW is so epic. It's so cool. I got to do so many cool things there in that game. That was so awesome. That was one of my best games. And then iSarCasm is just like raging about it, just angry. Meanwhile, Iskatumesk does not like this post. He hates it when the Antseal gets away. But here comes a witness. It's going to idle in front of that anchor. And if the Antseal walks forward, oh shit. Oh, Another stockade being added. It actually is kind of like combined arms, which is a little bit interesting. Witness continuing to spy on things, sees the worker count. And there is a vulture over here guarding the third. Fairly bog standard. iSarCasm has a lot of money in the bank. He's going to once again go for the Ardent Authority and presumably a Cantor drops. I feel like the longer the game goes on, the more Neblime will be able to insulate himself against this, but we'll see what kind of army he is going to go for. It's going to be 4 Hurricanes, 3 Mavericks, 1 Cleric. An interesting drop, but easily mopped up by Dracodons, so I don't really think that's going to be too consequential. And we are actually making workers out of the embassy, at least briefly. Not a bad idea, since that means you've got 3 worker counts, 3 worker queues you can catch up that way. I think this is following a rally point directly into the enemy base, because it was the Witness rally point. I haven't actually been keeping tabs, but the Witness is indeed still alive. Antseal Trojan, here come the Dracodons, surely. What's the reaction? Got the Cantor about halfway done. This attack won't really be able to do too much. And I think actually as a result of that, yeah, he scouted the Ardent Authority, he scouted the Double Warden. He knows his time is, his days are numbered if he really sticks around there. At least that drop is numbered. And the Scribe. Oh no, the Scribe took out one of the lobotomy mines. That was actually placed to defend this cleric on the high ground, or the anchor on the high ground. That's pretty legit, actually. Witness is still spying on the army. Somehow Neblime doesn't notice it, or if he does, he doesn't care. And actually, he is bringing the Antseal within vision range, but there's nothing to attack it because that anchor is empty. Oh. By the way, when you detect transports, you can see what's inside them. I probably said that a million times in recent castovers, but I'm just letting you guys know it is a feature. Somebody use it, goddammit! I think Neblime is probably the only person to have told me that he's used it recently. You see production, you see energy count on spellcasters, you see all sorts of things. Usually reserved only for the player and their allies. Second Fulcrum, third Fulcrum, fourth Fulcrum, oh my god! We have so many Fulcrums coming, but no tier 2 I've noticed. Third base on the way as well, and the Cantor drop will actually get to do some damage. This might force Neblime to feel like he needs to commit, but there's a lot of Antseals, a lot of Dracodons over here. We do have some more units, and oh, actually, the drop isn't happening. The drop stopped short. And it looks like here comes the bio drops right on top of things. Hurricanes upvote this post. Beaver likes this post as well. He likes Ahmed. Everybody likes Ahmed. Engram is going to have to be canceled, but I don't think it's going to be, boys. It does end up going down, as well as the Warden. Here's the Cantor. It's going to start shooting these Masons. 2 shots get off before Neblime responds. 3 shots get off before Neblime responds. 4 shots get off before Neblime responds. Neblime, there's 11 kills on the anchor. Oh my god, Ahmed, no, you could die at any point if iSarCasm micros. Oh, iSarCasm didn't micro. This is looking pretty dire. He's got 2 Stargates on the way, but he doesn't have any other units coming out anywhere. He's got a Cantor about halfway done. Neblime has finally realized, holy shit, I'm under attack. And here comes Ahmed to try to save the day. But no, the Cantor has gone the other way. It unloads. It has growing the kill count 15 so far and counting. But look at this. The Nexus is going to go down. The Scribes have been massacred. to some degree. I mean, the worker count's actually relatively close, and the scribe should probably be pulled and transferred down here just to screw up the pathing of the clerics and the Goliath, stop them from healing so efficiently. Here comes an Acantor. It can be focused down as well. I don't think it's going to get that second shot off. No, it isn't, and that was all important. If Igor wanted to actually hold this, he's going to try to position his Auroras right above them so that when they do detonate, they blow up. He needs more of them. He has a lot of money that he could be spending, but I think the Acantor might be on its way back home to try to assist in the defense. That's a good idea. I thought maybe it had died. We have the Zealots bravely trying to sacrifice their life to stall it. He needs to unload that, but I don't know if he's going to. He fires a shot off onto Ahmed, who bravely sacrifices himself for the shot. He needs to load the Acantor, but he can't do it in time. And that might just be the closing moments of this game, ladies and gentlemen. He tries to use the Auroras again as suicide bombers, but the clerics they don't die. They just keep healing. And unfortunately for iSarCasm, I think he might be out of this game. Man, that was actually a nail-biter at the end. I know it seems like for sure neblime was ahead, but you know, you look at it, he's not mining from his natural. He has the third up. I guess that's probably the major thing that sealed the deal. And unfortunately, neblime, he had no chaos sown before he commenced the attack. And I think that's really the critical thing. I've also noticed that iSarCasm does end up floating a decent amount of money in some of these situations. Like, he had close to 1,000 minerals there as the attack was commencing and his Stargates were finishing. And to me, that kind of signals like, dude, you could have had so many more units if you had built them a little bit earlier. Again, I do think he's improved since then. I feel like it's a little bit bad manner almost to be casting these games when he's like, I think, significantly improved since then. But I also haven't seen too many of his games recently. So I guess he's just going to have to play super well and get those replays submitted. And eventually those will show up on this channel and we'll get to see some more stuff because he's kind of on the receiving end of a lot of pain so far. And I feel like that's just not very fair. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's casts. We'll be back with the last 3 or so, however many replays there were. I think there might have been 4, and one of them might be a big meaty one, actually. Let me look at it real quick. Yeah, we've got 3 replays left. One of them is 283 kilobytes. So comparison's sake, the last one we casted before that was less than half of that at 139 kilobytes. So I'm suspecting that we're going to get like a nice 30-minute macro game out of that one, but we'll see. Maybe it's all a fraud. Until next time, at the No Frauds Club.